Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Service Dog channel. I'm not a lawyer, and here's my copyright statement. Last month, I posted a video called Shocking Public Access Denial of a Service Dog Handler at a Restaurant. The thumbnail of the video says, Public Access Denial Recorded. I also made an 8-part series of shorts that would lead you to that video. Now, I was already planning to make a video explaining the background and the aftermath of that recording, but some of the comments I got prompted me to make this video sooner than I had already planned. Most of the comments left were good comments from people who understand the law, but I had some very ignorant people leave comments who are obviously uneducated, so let me educate those people as I tell you the whole story behind the video and what the DOJ did with the case. As I was gathering information to make this video, I happened to look up the business online, and guess what I found? A complaint from a woman with a service dog saying that she was also banned from the restaurant. I wish I could say I was shocked, but I'm really not. He's been getting away with this for years. As you can see, it happened to another person before it happened to me. Pause the video to read the screen. Here's the second page of his review, and here's the last page. So here's what happened to me. October 7, 2019, I went to a little restaurant in Saginaw, Texas called Joe's Pasta and Pizza. After my husband and I were seated, the owner came to me and asked to see paperwork for my service dog. I told him it's against the law for him to ask for that. He insisted that he can require the paperwork. I offered to get him a copy of the law out of my car, but he said he didn't need it because he already knew what the law was. He said he had a friend on the city council, and his friend said that he has to see the paperwork. I tried telling him how to look up the law on his cell phone, but he refused. I also offered to find it on my phone for him, but he refused and he wouldn't listen. He said he would allow me to eat this time, but next time I would have to show him the paperwork. He made a phone call, then came back to my table and told me again that his friend on city council said he has to see paperwork on the dog, but he would let me finish my dinner. I asked him how are his employees trained to know if it's a service dog, and he said he doesn't train them because he is always there when the place is open and he requires paperwork. He said some dogs misbehave and jump on the chairs, but that my dog was good. I told him if a dog misbehaved, he could ask the handler to take it out. I repeatedly tried to get him to look up the law, and he repeatedly insisted he knew it and he would always require paperwork. Later that night, I printed out a copy of the ADA FAQs on service animals published by the Department of Justice. I highlighted the part about only being able to ask 2 questions and not being allowed to request or require any documentation. I went back to his restaurant to drop off the paperwork and talk to him about it, but his employee said he wasn't there, so I just left it and asked them to give it to him. In all of our conversations, I was always very polite. I never raised my voice, never caused a scene, and never insulted or cursed at him. Then a few months later, on December 24th, 2019, I went back to the restaurant with a friend of mine who's also a service dog handler. Since I suspected that the owner would give me trouble, I had previously turned on my phone to secretly record the video without him knowing it. That's legal in Texas. I laid my phone face down on the edge of the table with just the camera hanging over the edge of the table, pointing straight down over my service dog, who was wearing her service dog vest, which is not required by law. Somebody commented that my dog was not marked as a service dog. Yes, she was. And even if she wasn't, it's not required. So for the person who said my dog was not wearing a vest, look a little closer, buddy. What do you call this? Here, let me zoom in really well for you, little man. There you go. What do you call that? A service dog vest. And it's not even required. So my friend and I sat down at our table and placed our orders. Her dog was under the table and not even visible. Mine was next to my chair. Both dogs were quiet, still, and well-behaved. I asked if the owner was there and was told that he stepped out and would be back soon, but that the lady owner was there. I told them I'd rather talk to the man because we had a prior discussion that I wanted to talk to him about. That's all I said, and I was very polite and kind the entire time I was there, as you can hear in the video. Later, the owner came in and he eventually came to see me. He stood about 7 feet away from the table so that he had to speak loudly across another table. I told him last time I was there, he told me I had to have paperwork for my dog, but he had said that he would let me finish my food last time, but next time bring paperwork. He said I was pushing too much. I asked him, what did I do that was pushing? He said that I had people come by his place and he didn't like that. I never had anyone come by his place. Never told anyone to come see him. Never even told anyone about my experience. I didn't tell anyone about it until I went with my friend the day of the recording. Right before we got out of the car, I told her about my previous experience in case we ran into trouble. I told him that I never sent anyone to his restaurant and that I just dropped off a copy of the ADA law. He said emotional support dogs are not allowed, even though her vest had the words service dog on it. I told him my dog is a service dog, not an emotional support dog. He said there are 3 things he can ask, and that I have none of those. I'm not sure what he meant by that other than referring to the 2 questions. It kind of sounded like he might have been referring to particular disabilities because he said I had none of those. Then he said he had to see my dog's vaccination records, and I told him he's not allowed to require that. An ignorant commenter backed him up by saying that he has to see proof of the dog's vaccination records in case it bit someone. He said to finish my meal, leave, and never come back because I was banned. I asked why, because of my service dog? He said no, because I'm pushing too much, because I came before and I came back again, and I'm trying to start a scene and pushing too much. Mind you, he was the one standing far away from me and speaking over tables at me. I told him I never started a scene, I've always been polite and never raised my voice. An ignorant commenter stated that I was being petty by coming back and discussing the issue. He couldn't be more wrong. As I showed you at the beginning of this video, he has done this to other disabled persons with service dogs. He did it to someone before me and to someone after me. By definition, it's discrimination against service dog handlers. They fall into a protected class of people under the Civil Rights Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's like saying he can refuse people of color if he wants to because it's his restaurant and he can refuse anyone he wants. Educating a restaurant owner to prevent him from incurring a $75,000 fine from the federal government and a $300 fine or 30 hours of community service from the state of Texas is not being petty, not to mention how he smugly continues to discriminate against disabled people with service dogs. So, the owner pointed out a sign in his restaurant that said he has the right to deny service to anyone. Guess what? No, you don't. You can't just decide you're not going to let disabled people with service dogs eat in your restaurant. It's against the law to do that. It's called discrimination. Again, he said I was banned and to never come back again. I asked him if it was because of my service dog, and he said no, my service dog can come, but I cannot because I push too much. My friend said what he's doing is against the federal law, and he didn't appreciate her speaking up. He told her not to worry about things that don't involve her, not realizing she also had a service dog under the table. He was very upset, so my friend stopped talking. At one point, a guy at the next table started backing him up, saying he could refuse service to anyone he wants because it's his restaurant. That guy got involved in the discussion because the owner was standing so far away from the table and talking loudly across the guy. Then the owner accused me of drawing attention. He again told me I was banned and not to come back because he had the right to deny service to anyone. I was polite the whole time, my friend paid our bill, left a nice tip for the waitress, and we left nicely and quietly. We always treated the owner and his staff respectfully, but he refused to listen. Okay, now for the aftermath. When I got home that evening, I went to the DOJ's ADA website and filed a complaint. After I did that, I found out about the protection and advocacy agency in Texas called Disability Rights Texas and filed a complaint with them as well. Protection and advocacy agencies, PNAs, were created in the early 70s because of a national news story about Willowbrook Children's Home in New York for kids with disabilities. The story, by Geraldo Rivera, showed the poor living conditions and bad treatment of children there. The new law passed by Congress in 1975 mandated that every state in the United States and territories needed to have an agency to protect and fight for the rights of disabled people. State protection and advocacy agencies are now required in every state, and they have the authority to investigate suspected abuse or neglect and seek justice for victims and their families, have access to records and facilities necessary to investigate abuse or neglect or to monitor the treatment and safety of residents, pursue litigation and all other appropriate remedies under federal, state, and local law, provide information and referrals regarding entitlements to services and other legal rights, educate policymakers on needed reforms to disability-related laws and services. If the Department of Justice won't take your case, which most likely they won't because they have so many, call your state protection and advocacy agency. There are 2 different ways to find them. Here is one website, and here is another website. Pause the video if you need to. Now back to my story. The DOJ contacted me first. They decided to investigate my case, so they scheduled a telephone interview with me to collect more information. I had already sent them a copy of the video I recorded. Disability Rights Texas was going to handle the case, but since the DOJ was willing to take it on, the state organization felt good about handing it over to them, along with all of the supporting information they could provide at a state level. Here's another email from Disability Rights Texas. This is an email showing how helpful the state organization was with supplying information to the DOJ for me. Here, the state was supplying the DOJ with the VA service dog program that my dog was enrolled in, and the fact that recording conversations in public is legal as long as one of the persons knows they're being recorded. And here's where the state advised the DOJ of the Texas laws that were broken and what the penalties were. If you listened to the video, you heard me mention the $300 fine, but the guy wouldn't let me finish saying, or 30 hours of community service. Here's the rest of that email. Pause the video if you want to read it. This is an email from the DOJ notifying me that they have initiated an investigation. And here is the attachment they sent me in the email. And it continues here. Pause it if you want to read it. This is where the attached notification explained how the process would work. And here's a signature section. Not that it means anything to you, but just to be thorough and show you everything. This is where I had responded to the request for more information. I attached my bank statement, but obviously you don't get to see my bank statement. Here was information my husband provided because they had asked for witness statements. Okay, so the story now sits where I gave the DOJ all of the information they could possibly want, plus extra. They had my service dog's training records, graduation certificate, proof she was tested in accordance with the Assistance Dogs International ADI standards, veterinary records, pictures of her and the vest she was wearing. I mean, you name it, they had it. They had a treasure chest. They had a win handed to them on a golden platter. So I waited and waited and waited because I know the process can take a long time. And after a while, I decided to call and check on the status of the case. The lawyer called me back and she was like, "Oh, nobody contacted you?" And I said, "No." Then she proceeded to tell me that when they contacted the restaurant owner, he told them he was going out of business because of the pandemic. This was 2020. So what did the DOJ do? They dropped the case. They closed it out and moved on. They believed his lie. So he carried on like nothing ever happened and the DOJ moved on to other cases. Since I was digging up all this information and found another service dog complaint in a Yelp review against the same restaurant, I decided to forward the online complaint to the DOJ lawyer who closed the case. This is my email to her. The statute of limitations is only 180 days for discrimination, and that would have expired in June of 2020. So there's no way we could pick my case back up again. Here it is, nearly 5 years after it happened, so they can't do anything about my situation, but I wish that the people who complained online through Yelp would file a complaint with the DOJ and set this guy straight. If she responds, I'll let you know in the description box below. If you don't see anything about it down there, then I haven't heard anything from her. Now, as far as the ignorant commenters go, get your stuff straight before you start spouting off a bunch of nonsense, because I'll delete your comments faster than you can type them up, and I'll mute you on my channel just like I already did to the other 2 ignorant people. The law is not what you feel like it is or what you feel like it should be, so the moment anyone starts spreading lies in my comment section, they'll experience the same thing. Thankfully, most of my viewers either know the law or they verify it before they leave comments that would expose their ignorance. Okay, I'm done with the lecture. If your inclination is to learn the truth and spread it to others, subscribe to the Service Dog channel. So, show me a little love here and listen to my playlist while you do the dishes, fold your laundry, shovel some snow, or walk your dog.